Let's dive into it. This is the first grade one of the meet up at Saratoga in 2018. This is the field of fillies and mares that went 9 furlongs in the grade one Diana. Chad has 3 of the 7 entrants in here. He had the post-time favorite Sister Charlie. He had the second choice in A Raving Beauty. And then he had a little bit of a longer price, but a grade one winner in her own right in New Money Honey. The question was, outside of those 3, could anyone beat the big sort of trio for Chad? And if so, who was it going to be? Well, nobody beat him, but this was a heck of a stretch run. Here is the stretch run of the Diana.
Get involved. Sister Charlie swings up on the far outside, and they're into the stretch, and it is Ultra Brad in front. Sister Charlie on the outside. Huxmore has given way, trying to get re-involved as A Raving Beauty, and then comes New Money Honey, but it's Ultra Brad in front, close to home from Sister Charlie. They're coming down to the line. Oh! Sister Charlie!
Sister Charlie, as your even money favorite, gets the job done for Chad Brown and wins the grade one Diana over Ultra Brat, who ran probably too well to lose a race like this for Graham Motion at odds of 15-1, the second longest price on the board. And Chad's one of his other grade one winners anyway, A Raving Beauty, runs third at odds of 5-2. If you played that trifecta for 50 cents, it comes back $42 even. Let's take a look a little bit more at Sister Charlie and see what she's all about. 8 times in the exacta from 9 lifetime starts. 5 of them are victories, over $1.1 million in career earnings, owned by Peter Brandt, trained by Chad Brown, bred by, I'm going to give this one a shot, Écurie de Monceau. That's just taking a wild shot. In Ireland. Ridden to victory by John Velasquez, and you can see the pedigree at the bottom of the horse card. She is by My Boy Charlie out of a Galileo mare named Starlet's Sister. 102 Beyer speed figure, 126 time form U.S. rating for Sister Charlie, winning the Diana. The interesting thing here is, from a Beyer standpoint, the top 2, they both earned 102s, but from a time form standpoint, Ultra Brat actually earned a faster time form U.S. rating than Sister Charlie, because the time form U.S. ratings, the final ratings anyway, they encompass and incorporate pace situation. So the fact that Ultra Brat was closer to the pace than Sister Charlie was, that's why she earns a 127. Also worth noting, Hawksmoor, the 4th place finisher, actually earned the co-highest time form U.S. rating with a 127. Sister Charlie is a very nice horse. There's really no denying that. I think it's a scenario where, unfortunately, Chad had even said it. It sounds like, and I say unfortunately, it just is what it is, just with a lack of options. They want to run her a few more times before the Breeders' Cup, and it sounds like they're going to wheel her back in the Beverly D out at Arlington Park here in 3 weeks. So that'll be interesting to see how she comes out of that. I think additional distance is her friend. You have to look at her as one of the main threats as far as the domestic horses are concerned come Breeders' Cup time down at Churchill Downs, the filly and mare turf, because distance is only going to be her friend. We know that she has a pretty serious late kick. She got her final 1/8 of a mile in 11:34. The only horse that was relatively close to that with the final kick was A Raving Beauty, who came home in 11:37, and we'll talk about her a little bit more momentarily. Sister Charlie, I don't really have any knocks, other than I hated how long it took her to change leads. I know some of you hate hearing me talk about lead changes, but you know what? It is what it is. If you don't like it, fast forward. It's a beautiful thing about a podcast. You don't have to listen to it all. Sister Charlie, though, she'd never really done that before, and that bothers me a little bit. It doesn't mean that it's an end-all, be-all, and that she can't win grade one races going forward, but it is just something to keep an eye on, especially when you consider she's going to be one of the favorites in a race like the Beverly D, wheeling back on 3 weeks. I'm sure they decide to go that route. That's the way it sounds like it's going to go. But hey, again, she is what she is. She just shows up, and she runs great race after great race. And again, she was unlucky in that New York Stakes just because she was so far back early on. She ran really well there, and she ran really well here, winning the Diana. Ultra Brat ran too well to lose. You have to feel for Graham Motion. Everyone has talked about it on Twitter, and it's 100% accurate. When Motion has a target, he is as dangerous as anyone here in the United States and even in the world. Ultra Brat, she's a horse that I had always sort of discounted a little bit. I thought she was more of a Gulfstream kind of horse, more of a miler, and then she showed up with that big run down at Pimlico on Preakness weekend, but that was over an absolute bog. So I didn't know that I really took that 100 Beyer at face value. Well, all she does is come back and run a bang-up race. 102 Beyer here running second, beaten by a nose at 15-1. She's a nice horse, and now all of a sudden she fits interesting in this sort of middle distance ground. I don't know that she's a Beverly D type at 1 3/16. I feel like she is better at a flat mile, but we'll find out. It'll be interesting to see where she ultimately goes from here. A Raving Beauty, we need to talk about her because in the far turn, she had all sorts of trouble. She's down on the inside, and she also fits that international trip horse, stealing a line from Peter Thomas Fornatale, host of the DRF Players podcast. Everyone and their brothers saw the trouble that she had. She's down on the inside, moving very well beneath the Rat Ortiz Jr., and unfortunately, it just, whether it was Hawksmoor starting to back up a little bit or it was a Raving Beauty coming up on her, just one of those things where she had a little bit of run and she had nowhere to go. She got to check and kind of steady and alter. And unfortunately, it probably, I don't know that I'm going out of, stepping out of line saying it probably cost her a victory because she was only beaten by less than a length. So it was a big effort from a Raving Beauty. Now, the question becomes, where do you go with her going forward? Because I feel like with Sister Charlie, additional distance is her friend, and I understand there are some people that look at a Raving Beauty and say distance isn't going to be a problem for her, but I wonder if she is slightly better at these 1 1/16, 1 1/8, or a flat mile like she had when she won the Just a Game at Belmont. Wherever she shows up, you've got to view her as a legitimate player, regardless of distance, because she's just in such good form. And again, she had that terrible, terrible situation on the far turn where the trip just didn't work out. Hawksmoor, it was nice to see that she could still run a little bit, but that also made me question a little bit of what this field was all about, because I thought she was beat probably with 3/8 of a mile to go. And the fact that she's only beaten by a little more than a length and change, that to me is a little bit, I don't know what to make of that. But at the end of the day, when Hawksmoor is good, we know she's capable of producing an effort like this. Proctor's Ledge, I don't really want to hold this one entirely against her. She's done too many good things to think that this was sort of, she just was no good. And maybe it's just not her day. I also happen to think she's also better going a little bit shorter than 9 furlongs. New Money Honey, I think it might be over for her. Chad still seems to think that there's a race for her somewhere. I don't think she's nearly what she was as a 3-year-old. I just don't think she's moved forward. And War Canoe, no disrespect, War Canoe deserved to be 47-1 in a field like this. So it'll be fascinating to see what this race ultimately ends up being from a production standpoint. Where do some of these girls go, and how many of them are legitimate players in those next races? I would venture a guess at least 3 of them, maybe even 4 or 5, will be legitimate threats wherever they show up next. A little bit unfortunate trip for a Raving Beauty. Terrible beat for Ultra Brat just because she ran too well to lose. Sister Charlie gets all the cash and prizes. She wins the Grade 1 Diana opening weekend up at the Spa with a 102 buyer and a 126 Timeform US rating.